summit or conference, as you may please. My name is Malvin Gomo, and as Zansele said, I'm a tech entrepreneur, but I always believe that if you look at my background, I'm an engineer by profession, but my inclination is more towards trying to solve problems in our ecosystem, because we could all be engineers, we could all be technical people, but as long as we don't solve problems in our environment, we are good as not doing anything at all. So in the interest of time, that's just a brief about me. Maybe you will get bored about me today because I'll be talking a lot, not really talking, but just maybe introducing our speakers. Very much excited because when I look at the lineup that I have here, it's really exciting, the insights that we're going to get today, in the interest of trying to pave the way to the next generation technologies, things that are going to influence where we're going and who we are and where we're going. And our discussions are going to revolve around trying to unearth the potential that AI, I'm sure everyone is talking about AI. I'm sure we could all roundly agree that everyone is talking about AI. The man in the street is talking about AI, you know? So how do we align ourselves as traditional business, as new emerging technologies, and as new businesses? How do we put all of those things together? And today with me here is a list of exciting people that are going to share their insights from their respective businesses and what they do. There's a picture that I want to project there. So when you look at that picture, I'm sure you've seen it, which basically is a timeline of the industrial revolution and the changes that have taken place. And I'm preaching to the converted here because you basically know what's happening there. But my interest is in trying to look at this fourth part, which is the fourth industrial revolution, in trying to help us understand what are the potential that we have in this technology is taking us to. You know, and without wasting much or any of your time, I will call our first speaker, Jacques Ludik, who is the CEO and founder of Cortex Logic and the president and founder of Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa. Jacques is a smart technology entrepreneur, AI expert, investor, and ecosystem builder with a PhD in computer science, with a specialization in AI, over 25 years experience in the field of AI and data science and its applications. He is currently among other roles, the founder and CEO of Cortex Logic and founder and president of the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, and he has also founded Bennett AI, Mosaic, Synergy, C-Sense Systems, Africa's first AI company that was sold to a multinational company, specifically General Electric in 2011. Apart from his executive management responsibilities in these companies, he was previously Vice President, Data Science and Chief Officer of Jumo, Director and Big Data and Analytics Leader at General Electric and Senior Lecturer at the University of Stellenbosch. Jacques, my pleasure to welcome you to the conference today, and he's going to be talking about how we can utilize AI, machine learning, and the related technologies in trying to unearth the potential that we have in all of this business. I don't know if he's ready. That's for all of our speakers. And down the foyer is a room there where we'll be getting our refreshments from, so we can utilize that. Thanks, Jacques. I think you're ready.
Yeah.
If you're ready, your time. Welcome to to the AI conference this morning, and my privilege and pleasure to introduce you and give you an opportunity to share your thoughts and your insights in this space.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Is the mic on?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, that's better. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you again for the privilege to be here. The talk today is going to be, is actually outlined there, operationalization of AI to help businesses thrive in the smart technology era. And just helping to shape businesses thrive and helping shape a better future is part of my personal massive transformative purpose in business as well. But if you think about the challenges that we've got as business in general, how do we create end-to-end AI solutions? How do we create the value? How do we address the business value drivers? So before I start, I just want to get a sense of the industries represented here. Who's in finance industry? Financial services, okay? Healthcare? Okay, retail? Telecoms? Okay, minerals, metals, mining? Okay, so you've got people from various industries, so that's interesting. Any other industries that I haven't mentioned?
Geospatial systems.
Geospatial, cool. Lots of applications there, satellite imagery and stuff. We're also in that space. Yeah? What's that?
Law.
Law. Law is a big one. I'm going to actually reference law as well. Software. Yeah. Automation. Yeah.
Conservation.
Conservation.
AI platform.
What's that?
AI platform.
AI platform. So technology players. So it's
we provide the cloud-based AI services.
cloud-based AI services. Great. So it's part of the infrastructure, part of that delivery, incredibly important part of delivering and operationalizing AI. Okay, anyone else? Okay. So, what I want to do in today's talk, if we can get to the next slide. It's just working now. There we go. So that's my agenda. So what I want to do first of all, just set the scene very briefly and talk about AI as the key exponential technology in the smart technology era. Now, when I talk about a smart technology era, I'm actually referring to the fourth industrial revolution that people are probably familiar with. But I call it the smart technology era because it's a bit more generic than just industry. You've heard all the different sectors represented here. And there's also other exponential technologies. So it's actually the fusion of these exponential technologies that's important. There's IoT, there's blockchain, there's a few other technologies. But I'm going to highlight AI. And I'm also going to show you SoftBank's vision on that and why they actually just invest in AI-driven companies as well. Then I'm going to talk specifically about AI-driven digital transformation to generate business value. And then I'm going to go into AI adoption and specific use cases, and I'm going to touch on the man-machine intelligence continuum. I've got some specific things that I want to share. And I think in today's age, it's very important to talk about trustworthy AI. So if you think about even what happened to Boeing's 737 MAX, and you think about predictive maintenance, and you think about sensors, faulty sensors, those type of things as well, trustworthy AI is important. If you think about bias in software, in decision making, in algorithmic decision making, then it's very, very important. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm also going to talk about jobs and the future of AI, and then end off with improving the state of the art in AI. Okay, so that's briefly the agenda, and I hope to fit that in half an hour, or actually 25 minutes. So we're slightly later, so we're just going to, so 25 minutes from now. Okay, so there's my massive transformative purpose. I think a lot of people identify probably with that. We all want a better future, but what does it mean? And obviously in this new era. So as a human race, we've put ourselves on this track, and the question is, what do we do with this? And how do we create a better society for everyone? So the fourth industrial revolution, I already mentioned that. It's the fourth industrial, that's what I call the smart technology era. And effectively what we see here is that it actually affects everything. The way we live, work, relate to one another as well. And the way we can define it is also the fusion of all these kind of new technologies. And I'm going to quickly reference some of that. But it's also kind of blurring the lines between the physical, the biological, and the digital worlds. So that's what we effectively see. And we see also an impact on all disciplines. So it's absolutely something to take serious. And you can't do actually business without looking at that. Now, if you think about the 4 industrial revolutions, this is just my quick summary of that. So the first one was really steam, water, and it was all about mechanizing production. The other one, the next one was using electric power to create mass production. The third one was about automating production, and how do we do that? Using electronics and information technology. And what we call it a 4th industrial revolution, when we see a lot of the automation of production happening still. And the way I'm looking at this, I'm saying smart automation. So it's about intelligent automation, and it's the fusion of these kind of technologies. And it's obviously building on the 3rd revolution. So from the World Economic Forum, these are some of the leaders just talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution and just saying that we can't wait until there's massive dislocations to prepare us. We are in it, we need to do something about this, we need to be proactive. There's lots of examples of companies that hasn't been proactive, and they've obviously we've seen the results. And we also see the new incumbents, we see the new tech companies and what they are doing with data and being AI driven. I just want to highlight one more slide here. Klaus Schwab was saying it's in the new world, it's not the big fish which eats the small fish, it's the fast fish which eats the slow fish. And we're going to see this movie play out over the next few years. In the next 5 years, we're going to see this. Some big incumbent players, and you can see some disruptors becoming exponential organizations and platform players, like the Ubers, the Airbnbs, those type of companies. And we will see the effect of that in business right through. Okay, so the speed of technology change in the smart technology era. As humans, we live in, receive life and time very linear. We see day goes by, hours and minutes, but amongst us, there's a very a lot of dynamics and things going on, and specifically things that's actually sitting on not linear curves, but exponential curves. And what this slide is illustrating is at the bottom there, you see a number of exponential technologies, and you see the conversion of these technologies and creation of all these kind of solutions, engineered solutions and applications. So it's actually increasing this exponential curve and doing more. And we can expect more and more times to be surprised by progress. So, because we're sitting on exponential curves. And clearly with social media, with phones, and what's next after phones, basically what's happening here are people are being instrumented. Big tech companies knows a lot more about you. If you've got apps, and there's also the companies that are utilizing apps, they can utilize that information to obviously look at your behavior, track your behavior, build more predictive models, and there's going to be some good things as well. We will get on-demand personalized service delivery, as we've seen, but the challenge is there for other companies to become like the Amazons and the Netflix in terms of, say, recommendations and the way they know what you like and what you don't like, and be more relevant as well. So this is important for healthcare, financial services, other industries as well. So this is the slide that I referred to at the start. So SoftBank is the world's, it's got the world's biggest VC fund, I think 100 billion, the Vision Fund. They invest in, this is the way they look at the world. So this is an interesting slide, because I've mentioned the 4 industrial revolutions and stuff, but this is now looking at value extracted from various industries and technologies. So looking at things like from that perspective. And what you see at the bottom there is agricultural, fishery, metals. This is where we've extracted initially significant value. Then after that, the industrial financial space. And then after that, the internet era. And then what we're entering now is the AI era, effectively. That's how they project it. And I think it's because everything's actually becoming software defined. It's becoming, data is available. If it's data driven, it's about how do you actually create these, how do you utilize that data to actually become more predictive, prescriptive, cognitive around your data. And you can instrument everything. The more we instrument the world, the more the AI era will be effective, and we will see the benefits of that. But what's interesting on the slide, it also shows a 25-year period, 1995 to 2019, and you can see obviously we've got still the agriculture, fishery, metals, but you can see it's moving down relative to the industrial, financial, obviously business value extraction from those industries. But you also see the exponential curve that the internet has been on during that time. But then you also see within that 25-year time span up to 2019, you also see we're entering another exponential curve that sits on top of the internet, which is called the AI era. So this is their view, and one that clearly that I also agree with. There's obviously other technologies as well, but there's clearly incredible value to unlock from AI. So this is just a few comments from some people like Google CEO Sundar Pichai, who say we will move from a mobile first to an AI first world. So the big tech players, this is what they say. Andrew Ng was saying AI is the new electricity. So these are some of the comments being made. Now, before I get into digital transformation and operationalizing AI, just brief definitions. We talk about AI, so a very short definition is AI is a branch of computer science. There's obviously other disciplines as well, but it primarily came from computer science. And it develops machines and software with intelligence. So it tries to simulate that. Then a very important branch of that is machine learning. Machine learning is really all about data-driven AI. So it's actually building models, data-driven models, and it's also those models are typically models that learn from data, and you can improve it all the time. And then where a lot of the breakthroughs pretty much happened in the last decade, it was a subset of machine learning, which is called deep learning, and which is more just focused on modeling higher level abstractions in data using model architectures that's composed of multiple nonlinear transformations. But it's really just stacking up layers and layers of these neurons, of these networks, or neural networks, effectively. So why deep learning? And I think this is where things got interesting, because we also see another exponential curve, and that is data generation. Data is being generated at an absolute exponential rate. And because of the IoT, because of social media, because of the world being instrumented more, we see a lot more data available. So the question is, how do we utilize it? So we actually see data generation on the exponential curve, and you see data utilization linear, and that gap is increasing, because there's lots of structured and unstructured data available. And with deep learning specifically, it allows us to actually tap into unstructured data as well. So like video, audio, text data as well. And the other big thing is it also helps, it can also unlock value from huge amounts of data. It's almost like you can almost improve it the more data you feed the system. And that was not the case a decade ago. When you think about traditional machine learning, where you actually got to limits, you can't really improve the system. Now that's not the case anymore. So data is a new oil, very, very key to actually improving systems, building solutions. And then the next slide, if I can get to that. Oh, there we go. The deep learning recipe, in summary, big data, compute, no excuses anymore. We just talked about cloud computing and stuff. There is so much you can do, and then with hardware, there's dedicated hardware that can help with training these kind of systems, and you get order of magnitude of improvements with these kind of systems. So the compute is there, and then there's also improvements in the algorithms, what we also see. Okay, so this is a slide from Bloomberg Beta, and since then there was actually 3 other versions on top of this, but this slide was put together just to try and map out all these companies, big tech players and AI startups and all sorts of companies that's trying to address various needs across industries. And what was interesting there's obviously some innovation on core technologies, the top stack. Then below that, it's saying rethinking enterprise. And it's actually looking at a company and looking at all the departments, sales, security, fraud, HR, marketing, all of that, and how AI is affecting that. You actually have startups and AI companies focusing on very specific solutions there. And then you can look at industries. If you look at ad tech, agriculture, education, finance, legal, etc., you see very specific solutions for that as well. And then finally, also rethinking the human-computer interface. And I think as humans, it was, we the last, say, 20 years, 3 years, we had to adapt to technology, these keyboards and mouses and stuff like that. I think with specifically AI and deep learning, that will allow us as humans to engage more in a natural fashion with equipment. We can just talk to systems, they can detect things, be proactive, we can have more normal interactions. So it's going to be very interesting. Even when you think about writing stuff, maybe just talk and it writes it for you, all sorts of different things would be possible. And maybe it's in combination with you as well, giving ideas and stuff like that as well. So it's a very interesting world. And that's why I'm going to talk about the man-machine intelligence continuum. How do we need to react to this? And what's our role in utilizing this in an optimal fashion? So this is actually a recent survey done by MMC Ventures in Europe, and they were looking at AI startup industry focus areas, now just made available 2019. And this was kind of the industries where there was a lot of focus. So you can see most of these AI startups was actually in health and well-being, and then the other one was after that is finance. So the big two industries clearly healthcare and finance. But you can see also media, entertainment, retail, transport, education, agriculture, infrastructure, utilities. These are the industries that are being looked at. And then if you think about the application areas, and I'm going to dig more into use cases and things like that as well, what's interesting, especially I think for consumer-facing businesses, marketing was a huge one, 23%. And then customer services, obviously with intelligent virtual assistants and chatbots and all those type of things coming to the fore, you see these kind of applications as well. You can do things more at scale, more in a personalized fashion, that type of thing. IT, 16%, operations, BI analytics, sales, compliance, HR. So those are some of the startups that give you an idea. Now, if you go back to business, you think about enterprises. For me, it always starts with the business, the value drivers. What is the value drivers of the business? And this is kind of a slide that I put together that kind of just summarize some of the key value drivers across multiple industries. And clearly, you want to increase the operational efficiency, the effectiveness, and you want to increase revenue of the business. So, and that's kind of summarized in that left block, where we talk about increasing productivity, and it's obviously if you increase automation, if you improve your processes, you've got equipment available, then obviously you're going to increase your productivity. If you want to increase your revenue, if you think about minerals, metals, mining, then throughput, yield, and quality is important. If you think about customer-facing businesses, cross-selling, upselling, recommendation is important. But you also want to reduce risk, and you want to lower cost. But with data, it's also incredibly valuable as well. So you can actually create strategic value. You might think you're in this business, but because of the data that you've assembled, you can utilize that to actually create new business models and new revenue growth opportunities. So it's very strategic as well. And then the last bucket there is more focused on customer-facing businesses, where you can really enhance the customer experience and have more targeted sales and marketing. And the real-time, on-demand, digital, personalized service delivery that I've referred to earlier on. But obviously, to do that personalization, you need 360-degree view, if you can, of a customer. So the data science and building the churn models, recommendation, cross-selling, upselling, risk, all of those type of things, dynamic pricing, those are things that's important. And this is an interesting slide as well, looking at more generically. If you think about what does AI offer, clearly it's innovation, efficacy, velocity, and scalability. And what I show on this slide is not only those benefits, but the explanation around, say, innovation is around, say, new products and services. What's the examples? We've seen this with Teslas and these autonomous vehicles. We see this with voice control devices. If you look at efficacy, you're looking at performing tasks more effectively. And examples are things like fraud detection, customer segmentation, etc. So, and I think it's got a mind of its own. But But anyway, so just going back there, so just see, there we go. If you look at velocity, things like completing tasks more rapidly, legal document processing. So from a legal perspective, think about manufacturing process optimization. So currently, and I'm going to show a little bit of those use cases as well, we're doing machine learning based email processing. You've got machine learning reading the intent, understanding, extracting information there, looking at sentiment, but doing auto replies, looking at attachments and documents, doing OCR, all that kind of stuff, and rerouting things and so forth. And that helps customers to do things quicker, more rapidly. And then scalability, if you think about automated medical diagnosis, automated executive assistants, all of those type of things. Then, how companies are adopting AI. This is just quickly showing, I'm going to dig a little bit into this a little bit more. The 5 elements of successful AI transformations. I'm going to actually discuss this on the next slide. There it is. If it doesn't jump to the next one. I think the Industrial Data Corporation talks about the 5 pillars. They talk about intent, which is the use cases and sources of value. The second one is data, the data ecosystems. The third one is technology, the technology and tools. The fourth one is process, which is the workflow integration. How do you take this AI solution? How do you integrate this into your workflow? And then finally, very important, people. So, what is the role of people in this solution specifically? How does their tasks change as a result of that as well? So there needs to be an open culture in organization. So if you want to accelerate the path to value generation, so that bottom graph, how do you actually bring it back? So I've just mapped those 5 pillars that we prescribe for big data analytics maturity there, and you can see if, where they are positioned on that curve. So you see data, technology, people, intent, and process, and how you can actually bring back, so you accelerate that path to value generation effectively. And the next slide is actually going into a little bit more detail, where it's, if you think about what does it mean, the use cases and sources of value. Obviously, you want to scan your use cases horizon. I'm also saying articulating the business needs and create business use cases. So what we do is we actually sit with the executives or the management of various companies, and we do AI workshops for free. And we analyze, work with them, what are the key specific use cases, and then we help to prioritize as well. And you try and map the expertise of what technology can bring to the party to actually address that as well. So it's very important that one do that in a proper way. And then you obviously want to look at quick wins. You want to get trust in the system, that this is actually working. And then you obviously need to look at your data ecosystems, and you want to break down silos and things like that as well. There's a big data analytics perspective, but then you can, within that, you can actually implement those quick win solutions. And there's a bit more details. I will make the slides available so that people can actually go into more detail there. But there's some very important detailed points there. Now, the final point on this, you can also measure your progress from a big data analytics perspective, where you can say, moving from an ad hoc state to an optimized state, and going from ad hoc, opportunistic, repeatable, managed to an optimized state or stage within all 5 categories. And you can kind of map that on a radar chart like that. And I've done this before with some other companies, and it's quite interesting to see exactly where you are and then how this actually improves over time if you actually diligently look at all 5 pillars. Okay, so this is, if you think about workshops and thinking about things where one can add value, this is a business value framework for identifying AI opportunities. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I want to give you a high-level idea. So on the y-axis, you're looking at data complexity. So obviously you've got structured data, stable, low volume, but you've got also, well, a lot of companies now, unstructured, volatile, high-volume data. So that's on the y-axis. On the x-axis, we talk about work complexity. So some of the work or task within a job is routine or predictable or rules-based. So, and then that can move to ad hoc, unpredictable, judgment-based. And if you look at it from that perspective, you can effectively create 4 quadrants and categories there. And if we start with the one at the left bottom here, efficiency model, There we're looking at routine with little discretion, and it could be automated credit decisions or package delivery by drones and things like that. But if you move up to unstructured data, it could be virtual assistants or agents for consumers and for enterprise customer services, collaboration or workflow management, those type of things. It's becoming a bit more unstructured. These people maybe on natural language communicating things, and you need to deal with that. And then if you move to the ad hoc, unpredictable judgment-based side, on the bottom left, below there, you see expert models, where we're saying judgment-oriented work, expert system for medical diagnosis. But then when you move to unstructured, it's things like support for biomedical research, fashion design, music writing, those type of things. So you can obviously utilize AI for those things as well. So interesting, this is kind of a nice summary of some of the core use cases per sector. So asset management, we're also into that, trading, asset management. But there's a bunch of interesting use cases, and you see AI more utilized in that level as well. So investment strategy, portfolio construction, risk management, etc. Think about healthcare, diagnostics, drug discovery, precision medicine. Those are very important areas that we're also looking at. But anyway, so a range of use cases mentioned there. I'm going to just skip a few slides. There's some really cool details because it's talking about the market and so forth. Just quickly in terms of healthcare, this top 10 AI applications actually showing, they've actually equated the opportunities in terms of billions of dollars, and a lot of these on the top 10 AI applications are actually healthcare related. And the top one there is robot-assisted surgery, $40 billion. But you see virtual nursing assistants also. So there's a range of things listed there, which is interesting. And now I just want to quickly talk about the sectors. I had a question initially about the sectors, and what I'm going to talk a little bit more about AI adoption now as well. So what this slide is actually showing, the green, the darker blocks, or the darker green and darker blue, is actually indicating more adoption. So, and it's also across assets, usage, and labor. And clearly, high-tech telecommunications there's bigger adoption there. But you also see automotive assembly, financial services, resources, media. You see some of the others listed there as well. And there's another slide that's just showing it from a different perspective. We talk about falling behind versus leading sectors, and there they actually again refer to high-tech, financial services, clearly taking the lead. And then what's interesting here as well, you also see uneven AI adoption across industries. And obviously the sectors are also in a state of flux. But what's interesting here with this particular one, and this is a 2019 version, the other one was slightly older. Insurance is 48%. They realize they're being disrupted. This is an industry that's really aggressive now around this. Software, IT services, telecoms, retail, all of that is important. And you can also see this in terms of time spent in processing, collecting data as well. So this is just showing enterprise plans to deploy AI, and you can see that there's still the bulk of companies that hasn't deployed it yet. Only 14% is actually deployed, the rest is plans as well. How much time do we have? Okay, I actually want to get some really interesting slides, so I'm going to skip a few things here. So let's just skip here. So there was a TED talk by Dr. Lee. He wrote a book that I recommend, AI Superpowers, and it's actually talking about Silicon Valley and China, what's happening in the world right now. And Lee was in Silicon Valley, and he's spending significant time in China at the moment. But he's got a very interesting worldview on AI. But he also is interested in how AI can help shape a better society, better world. And basically what he did, and I'll show some of the slide very briefly to end the presentation. You can look at jobs from a repetitive, routine, optimizing complex to creative side. So we go to the next slide. It shows that AI will actually penetrate tasks in jobs that's repetitive within 5 years. Routine tasks will be penetrated within 10 years, and optimizing tasks within 15 years. Complex creative, clearly a bit more safe. So you can actually position tasks and jobs on an x-axis like that. We see things like repetitives, like say telesales, dishwasher, customer support, or truck driver. Those type of things are repetitive routine. But if we now what he's saying is that if we actually add a y-axis, and you're looking at compassion not needed and compassion needed, you can reposition those jobs, and you can also create more jobs. And we can associate more value to those jobs that's more where compassion is more needed as well. So I've added a few jobs there. And then what you effectively see here is a world where you will see the repetitive stuff, routine stuff, where AI will absolutely take those jobs over. So we need to shift. But what you will see is when you move to the right, where things are creative and strategy-based, etc., you will see more human, where AI and human will interplay. When you go to the top end, you will see the human race of humans utilizing AI, so on the left-hand side. And then clearly when we move to the right-hand side, it's more a space where compassion, where humans can operate, be creative, and so forth. So the hope is that we actually create this kind of ecosystem and world economy where that's more human-centric and where we value compassion and human-centric services and utilizing AI in an optimal way. Okay, so I want to end with that, so thank you very much.